joined by Congressman Robert Aderholt, Republican from Alabama, northern Alabama. Congressman, I know you were listening to the conversation that we were just having about the economy. I wonder your thoughts about whether we're in for a V-shaped recovery or something different.
Well, I'm optimistic that we will have a good recovery. I think there's so much, as the president's pointed out, there's been so much pent up and people in their homes, and they're wanting to get out, and they are longing to get out. And I think once we go into that phase of people getting back to work, getting back to their activities, that I think a lot of people are going to be traveling. I think a lot of people are going to be going out to dinner, shopping, doing things that they were not able to do for the last several weeks. So I'm actually, optimistic about it.
What's the economic situation in Alabama's 4th Congressional District right now? I know farming is a key industry there.
Well, as far as ag is a very big part of our economy here. The poultry industry, we have a lot of chicken growers, poultry growers, processors here. But we're pretty diversified in small manufacturing. That's why this CARES Act that we passed just a couple of weeks ago was very important to making sure that we are helping these small businesses not only across the district I represent, but across our state and also across the nation. We have a lot of small businesses, I say, that really keep the economy going, and this Paycheck Protection Plan is something that is very welcomed, and I'm glad to see that we were able to put that $350 billion in it. And of course, as you know, we're looking to adding another $250 billion. I hope that can be done pretty seamlessly. But there's part of the economy that, of course, is down. But as far as the poultry industry goes, even though that's not our 90% of what we do in this district, it is a large part of it. And of course, the poultry industry, as far as I know, have been able to survive and been able to be up and running just as normal.
Play out what you think is going to happen in the coming days here on that additional $250 billion for the Paycheck Protection Program. We know Senator Mitch McConnell wants to put it on the Senate floor and pass it by unanimous consent today. Nancy Pelosi saying that that's not something that she would agree to in her caucus when it gets to the House if there's not expanded funding in there for other issues for states and for hospitals as well.
Yeah, well, I'm optimistic that at the end of the day they're going to work something out, because there's so many members of Congress that can't come to Washington to vote on this, and they've got to get some kind of agreement. This Paycheck Protection Plan, or referred to as the PPP, has been a great success. I have heard, so many of my bankers initially, of course, having a little bit of frustration getting into the portals, but they are so eager to get in and take part of this that we've got to make sure it works. And this is a bipartisan issue. There's small businesses in Democrat and Republican districts, and I think it cuts across party lines. So I think at the end of the day, we can find an agreement. Of course, obviously, I know that the Speaker wants to get anything she can get in this, but there'll be other opportunities that we can work on some legislation, which is a fourth piece of coronavirus legislation, however it's referred to, that can be more comprehensive. But this is immediate need. Just as of 2 days ago, they had already gone through $70 billion of the $350 billion, and that was just within the first couple of days of it opening up. So I know that Democrat and Republican members are hearing from their constituents, their small business owners, that they've got to keep their employees on the payroll. And again, this is Democrat and Republicans alike. So I'm optimistic at the end of the day they'll be able to get some type of agreement.
And finally, Congressman, I know in the CARES Act, you specifically pushed for funds in that bill for rural broadband. Why and what was included in the act for rural broadband?
Yeah, well, that's thanks for bringing that up. That is something that we have been worked on for actually many years. I served as chairman of the Ag Subcommittee of Appropriations, and we were able to get over the last 2 or 3 years, we've been able to get over $1 billion for rural broadband. It sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. But when you're talking about broadband for the entire nation, that's when you start spreading it out, it's not as much. But we want to continue that program. We got about 340 additional billion in this last bill, this CARES Act, and we have just really seen right now the importance of making sure that every corner of America, whether it be rural or whether it be urban, has broadband. And with school children that are no longer be able to go to their classes, you can't leave the kids that live in rural areas that don't have access to rural broadband out, and just take care of the kids that are in larger cities and have the opportunity to get on broadband. So, it's like I equate it to what it would be like 100 years ago. We'll put in electricity, especially in the South and in parts of rural America. There were so many parts of rural America that didn't have electricity. And could you imagine today trying to start a business and you didn't have electricity? That's the same thing we're talking about with broadband today. If you don't have broadband, you can't run a business. You can't get an education. You can't do telehealth unless you're there in person. So it just highlights the real need for it right now in the situation we find ourselves in the United States in this time.
Congressman Robert Aderholt from the 4th District in the Yellowhammer State. Thanks so much for your time this morning. Stay safe down there.
Thanks so much. Good to be with you.
Coming up next on the Washington Journal, we'll be joined by Tom Sullivan of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to talk about what's being done to help small businesses during the pandemic.